Hello, and thank you for joining me. In this lesson, I share some information that will help with correct interpretation and relevant application of the Lord's teachings recorded in Luke chapter 15. In Luke chapter 15, Jesus spoke a parable to religious Pharisees and scribes, highly religious men. Those they labeled sinners, contemptuously, I might add, were drawing near to Jesus to hear him. Now, religion had no message for the sinners, but Jesus did. A message of God's love, a message of hope. Jesus was welcoming these people and fellowshipping with them. The Pharisees and the scribes were indignant, and they murmured against Jesus. This man receives sinners, and he even eats with them. The parable Jesus spoke to them consists of three illustrations, three elements, if you will. There is the lost and recovered sheep, the lost and recovered coin, and the lost and recovered son. And I'll point out in just a moment that I think displaced is a better word for lost. Point three, Jesus exposed the Pharisees and scribes' attitudes to be out of harmony with heaven's response to what was happening. In each illustration, there is a relationship. We have to work this through. In the lost sheep illustration and the lost or displaced coin illustration, a sheep and a coin belong to a shepherd and a woman, respectively. In the lost prodigal son illustration, a son is a child of his father. Important to get that. Point five, the sheep, the coin, and the prodigal son each became lost. Now, I prefer displaced. Lost can send one in a wrong direction, get one thinking in a wrong way. Jesus spoke of things and persons which were in their rightful places, but which became displaced out of their rightful place. There are times in believers' lives when they lose their way and become displaced. I suppose we could say there is such a thing as the lost saved, talking about children of God who get away from their Heavenly Father and lose their way in life. Point six, the relationship that existed between sheep and shepherd, woman and coin, and father and son did not change when the displacement occurred. Relationship never changed. Point A, the sheep belonged to the shepherd before it became displaced. It belonged to the shepherd while it was displaced. The same thing with the coin. It never ceased to be the precious property of the woman. Likewise, the son never stopped being his father's dear child, even while away from his rightful place, even while away doing his thing in a far country. Point seven, the displaced sheep, the displaced coin, and the displaced son were each recovered and restored to their rightful places. In each case, the restoration was an occasion of great joy and celebration. The figures Jesus used, now this is very important. The figures Jesus used correspond to the three parties present in the context. God, Jesus is God, the sinners who were being obviously recovered, and the Pharisees and scribes. Now, this is most clear, this correspondence is most clear in the illustration of the displaced and recovered son, which is really about the sorry attitude of the elder brother, who was a mirror image of the Pharisees and scribes and their sorry attitudes. I like to speak of them as like people I've seen in some of the Lord's churches. I call them lifers on God's prison farm. Oh, they'll be there. They won't miss a service, but they are not happy people. That's kind of like what the elder brother was, a lifer on his daddy's prison farm. This illustration involves a father, so the displaced and recovered son, this illustration involves a father and his two sons, both his children. The father and his sons correspond to the Lord, the sinners being recovered, and the Pharisees and scribes. Now, Jesus always used his representative figures purposefully. Now, I'm going to stop here, and I have given you some things to think about. The father and his sons. Again, in every illustration, a relationship never changed, never did. The sheep belonged to the shepherd while it was out of its rightful place. It started in its rightful place, it got out of its rightful place. It never ceased to belong to the shepherd. The shepherd actively sought that sheep. It was his precious property. Same thing with the coin, which was a part of the woman's dowry, her precious property. It became displaced out of its rightful place, but it was always her property. It never ceased to be her property. She recovered it after diligent search, and the recovery was an occasion of great joy. And then the younger son of what we call the parable of the prodigal son. Again, I think probably the sorry attitude of the elder brother might be better, because he's really the focus of the parable. Again, a mirror image of the Pharisees and scribes. But that son was a child of his dad, of his father. He never stopped, even when he left home, made bad decisions, and did his thing in a far country with dissolute women and whatever. He never stopped being his father's child. Same thing, the elder brother, a mirror image of the Pharisees and scribes. He'd stayed on the farm, but he was also a son of his father. He wasn't a very happy guy, but he was a son of his father. So there are some things here for you to think about, and here's some information that will help immensely with correct interpretation of these teachings and relevant application. Thank you for joining me. The Lord bless you and take care.